Our top focus at this hour, China kicked off its largest political event of the year on Monday as Beijing put on a carefully choreographed display of national unity. Analysts say Beijing seeks to undermine the rules-based order with a revisionist challenge of the status quo. New policy moves reinforce the belief that Xi Jinping can potentially resort to the use of force. So the question is China poised to pounce on Taiwan? Now, the conclave began with the opening meeting of the People's Political Consultative Conference, which lasts until Sunday. Attended by the top leadership, including Xi Jinping, here are some of the key takeaways on Taiwan tensions, defense expenditure and childbirth policies. Tensions have risen sharply in recent years over Taiwan. Nations are wary about Beijing's strategic intentions and the development of its armed forces. China said it would resolutely oppose separatist activities that were aimed at Taiwan's independence bid and external interference of any kind. The work report also said that China would be firm in advancing the cause of reunification, dropping the mention of peaceful reunification as cited in previous reports. China will boost the defense spending by 7.2% this year. It is the same rate as last year, but higher than the government economic growth forecast. The budget showed about $230 billion allocated to military spending. The defense budget is closely watched by China's neighbors and the United States. This year's increase in defense spending marks the 9th consecutive single-digit rise, as in previous years, no breakdown of the spending was given, just the overall amount and the rate of increase. China will also improve policies supporting childbirth. An official report detailed plans to support a growing elderly population. China intends to raise benefits and basic pensions and push forward a private pension system. China's population fell for a second consecutive year in 2023, with new births dropping to about half of those in 2016. Marriages hit a record low in 2022. Much of China's demographic downturn is the result of its one-child policy imposed between 1980 and 2015. Couples have been allowed to have up to 3 children since 2021. Authorities have tried to roll out incentives, including expanding maternity leave, financial and tax benefits for having children, as well as housing subsidies. But China is reportedly one of the world's most expensive places to bring up a child relative to its GDP per capita. To support the elderly, China will implement a private pension system across the country. It would appropriately raise the minimum basic old age benefits for rural and non-working urban residents and basic pensions of retirees. It said it would build a system for providing elderly care services at home and develop a health system specifically for the elderly.
Get on now and down.
For more on this, we earlier spoke with VOA's Beijing correspondent Bill Gallo. Here is what he had to say.
So the language we saw here today at the Great Hall of the People regarding Taiwan was definitely more impatient than it had been years ago. But it's really not that much different than the kind of language that Chinese leaders have been using recently when they talk about Taiwan. It's apparent that they are growing more impatient with Taiwan and with the eventual thought of reunification. However, it's not really clear that, either today or even in recent weeks that we're seeing any sign that China really wants to escalate things regarding Taiwan. I think they have so many other problems to deal with that sort of adding this huge one to their list is not necessarily something that they want to do. We'll go to various breakout groups in these 2 sessions events. We still don't know exactly how long these 2 sessions events will last, but it's sort of being watched for signs on a very interesting level. It's sort of cryptic messages that are sent. Even this government work report we heard today was filled with lots of language that really only means something if you've watched China for a long time. There's just a lot of communist kind of verbiage that goes on in these things. And so people who follow Chinese politics very closely will be watching not only the work reports that come out throughout the week, but also these press conferences where, some leaders will actually make comments and hopefully we'll get a better idea about what China intends to do for the rest of this year. Yeah, this really is one of the most interesting developments of this week. We usually did have a press conference at the end of every 2 sessions. And I mean, nobody thinks that this was just a freewheeling kind of, spontaneous press conferences where journalists were just asking questions of senior leaders, and they were getting sincere responses. I mean, it was always clear that this was a very sort of staged event. However, this was a time where senior Chinese officials did sort of face the people and give comments, and that's just not something that happens in the system very often. So it's sort of just another step that China has taken towards becoming more inward-facing and less transparent. I think this is really relevant in the context of the two sessions, which was meant to be, in large part, a time to reinsure foreign investors who have a lot of questions about China's economy. Well, it looks like a lot of those questions now may go unanswered.
WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.